All right. So this chapter, endocrine control of growth and metabolism, is actually pretty easy. Okay. So okay. Review of endocrine principles. So this stuff you should already know. So okay. Um, the hypothalamic pituitary um, control system. I'm going to expand this a little bit. So we call it HPA, okay, hypothalamic pituitary adrenal gland, which is going to play a big role in everything that we're talking about here, okay. And this is all going to be negative feedback and the hormone receptors and stuff like that. So, okay. Okay, so the adrenal cortex secretes steroid hormones. The adrenal medulla is all about adrenaline, but the adrenal cortex is all about steroid hormones. Okay. The most important really is going to be the aldosterone and the outer layer and the glucocorticoids in the middle layer. We'll skip the androgens in the inner layer. Because honestly, for men, it doesn't matter. And for females, it only really matters if you have a tumor there. Okay. Okay. All right. So let's take a look. Okay. Cortisol control is secreted by ACTH. Okay. So cortisol is actually a stress hormone. The control pathway secretion is the HPA. Okay. So corticotropin, so there's a little typo there, releasing the hormone CRH goes to the adrenal corticotropic hormone, ACTH, and then that really causes cortisol release. Okay. Okay. So cortisol is essential for life. So it plays a role in the mediation of long-term stress. So make sure you understand the difference between long-term stress and short-term stress. Okay. It has a protective effect against hypoglycemia through the permissive effect of glucagon. Okay. The metabolic effects are mostly catabolic. Okay. So mostly involve breaking down of things. So cortisol promotes gluconeogenesis, the formation of new molecules of glucose. Okay. It causes breakdown of skeletal muscle proteins for, again, more glucose, more energy in the blood. Enhances lipolysis, which is the breakdown of fat. Okay. Cortisol suppresses the immune system, causes negative calcium balance. Okay, influence brain function. Okay, so think about it this way: if your long-term stress is what we go through if you broke a bone in your body. Okay, so that's what causes long-term stress. Okay, so you basically want more energy shunted toward repair, and so what you do is you can break down more gluconeogenesis, more sugar in your blood. Okay, therefore more repair. Breakdown of skeletal muscle proteins, more amino acids in your blood, more repair. It has lipolysis, more energy, suppress the immune system, more energy go toward repair. Okay. 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 So don't worry about this figure. Okay. So again, you should understand what the axis actually is, right? So this is the HPA. Okay. So the hypothalamus, pituitary, and pituitary there. This is actually the anterior pituitary. Okay, and then the adrenal cortex. Okay, and then you can see the negative feedback loop here. Okay. All right. Then you see circadian rhythm of cortisol. It's diurnal, which means it peaks once a night and once during the day. Okay. Okay. ACTH is made by something called POMC. So this is POMC. Okay. So POMC turns into ACTH. Okay. Cortisol is a useful therapeutic drug, so I'm sure you guys have cortisol lotion already, probably somewhere in your house. It's what you put on itches and stuff like bee stings, etc., mosquito bites, and stuff like that. So by inhibiting the inflammatory immune response. Okay. All right. So too much. So cortisol is great on the outside. Okay, I don't care how much cortisol you put on your skin, but if you take too much cortisol internally, it can shut down ACTH production. Okay. Okay. So cortisol pathologies result from either too much or too little. Okay. So hypercortisolism is caused either by adrenal tumor that secretes too much cortisol, that's primary. Okay, a secondary hypocortisolism is a tumor that secretes too much ACTH, which then gets your body to secrete too much cortisol. Okay, and then finally, laterogenic hypocortisolism, Cushing syndrome. Okay. Okay. Hypocortisolism is the most common one is actually Addison's disease. Okay, and that's this hyposecretion of all the adrenal cortex. Okay. So okay, so this is Cushing's. Okay. Hypercortisolism causes abdominal fat to be deposited. So cortisol actually increases abdominal fat deposition, which is why, like they said, stress makes you fat. Okay, so it's obviously like within normal, like not pathological, unlike like Cushing's. Okay, so you can see the fat deposits. Okay, the moonfish shaped thing. Okay, so cortisol releasing hormone also has role in food intake, a little bit of onset of labor, mood disorders. Okay, because it comes from POMC. So POMC, okay, acts breaks down in like many different hormones all at the same time. ACTH, beta endorphin, okay, MSH. Okay, thyroid hormones. thyroid hormones are have long-term effects on metabolism, and so thyroid hormone actually affects long-term metabolism. Okay, it's not essential for life, but it's essential for growth and development, children and infants. Okay, so don't worry about the synthesis. What you do need to know about the synthesis is that you need iodine in so T3 is also more active than T4. Okay. So thyroid hormones promote oxidative metabolism, influence metabolism, and provide growth hormone. Okay, so thyroid hormone. Okay. So thyroid pathologies. Okay, so you should have again hyperthyroidism and hypothyroidism. Okay, so the goiter is the enlarged thyroid gland. Okay, so when the thyroid gland produces too much hormone, it increases oxygen consumption and metabolic heat production. Okay, you have hyperexcitable reflexes. Okay, you can influence the beta adrenergic receptors in the heart. Again, this increases heart rate, which is bad. The thyroid stimulates immune globulins that make sensation in Graves' disease, which leads to your eyes bulging out. Okay. Okay. So. Okay, and this is caused by either the thyroid overreacting or your pituitary tumors secreting TSH. Okay. Okay. Hypothyroidism. Okay. Leads to slow metabolic rate and oxygen consumption, decreases protein synthesis, which leads to a low levels of protein in the blood, which leads to myxoderma and the puffy experience, face, especially around the eyes. Your eyes look puffy. Okay, so nervous system changes. Okay, so bradycardia. So there's a couple of ways you can get hypothyroidism. Okay, primary hypothyroidism is due to lack of iodine. Again, iodine is necessary for thyroid hormone function. Okay, they add iodine to salt traditionally. Okay, if you live in California, you probably are not lacking iodine simply because we live next to the ocean, and I'm sure you guys eat a little bit of fish, shrimp, and other stuff from the sea. But people who live inland traditionally couldn't get enough iodine, and therefore they needed to add iodine to salt. Okay. Okay. So this is a goiter. So goiter is caused by excessive stimulation of the thyroid gland by TSH, causes the thyroid to enlarge. So if you're not secreting enough thyroid hormone, your body tries to compensate by getting you to secrete more thyroid hormone by stimulating thyroid stimulating hormone. Okay, and that increases the size of the thyroid. It doesn't realize that there's not enough iodine. So it tries to make more thyroid hormone. Okay. Okay. So mesoderma in so you can see that the bulges under the eyes and stuff. Okay. Okay. Hypothalamus. Okay. So there we go. All right. So hyperthyroidism is due to Graves' disease. Okay. Okay. So Graves' disease is where we produce too much. Okay. Thyroid hormone. Okay. Hypothyroidism is due to low iodine. Okay. So if you look at these two cases, you'll see something really kind of weird. So the thyroid gland enlarges, the thyroid gland enlarges. Okay. So, but there are two different causes for why the thyroid gland enlarges. And make sure you understand this. Okay. Okay. No. All right. Last but not least, growth hormone. Okay. So growth hormone. So growth is the process. Growth rates in children are not steady. I'm sure you guys know that, but children go through surges, right, of growth, and times where the growth is relatively like flat. They never stop growing, so they always grow, but then they'll have surges where they grow a lot faster than usual. Okay. All right. So growth hormone is an anabolic process. You have two neuropeptides that are released into hypothalamo hypophyseal portal system. They misspelled portal here. So hypothalamo hypophyseal. Hypophyseal is another word for anterior pituitary. Okay. So GHRH, which stimulates growth hormone release, GHIH, or somatostatin, prevents growth hormone release. Okay. Okay. The other name for growth hormone that you'll see is somatotropin. Okay. Okay. Growth hormone, when released, causes secretion of IGFs. Okay. IGF, insulin-like growth factor. Okay. Okay. So GH increases burning of fat and gluconeogenesis, which increases blood glucose, okay, which increases bone growth. Okay, the anterior pituitary feeds back to the hypothalamus. So GF and IGF inhibit GHRH and promotes GHIH. Okay. Okay. Jeez. Okay. Let me fix all that. This should be GHIH. Okay. Okay. So this is actually a really cool picture. So on top, the first person is Andre the Giant. Okay. And then undergiant obviously has an acromegaly, which is the growth, abnormal lengthening of the jaw, coarseness of features, growth in hands and feet, and you see how big he is. And then Manny Patinkin that in the middle, and he's relatively normal size. And then Wallace Shawn on the bottom, I don't think he truly suffers from dwarfism, but he's fairly short and probably has lower levels of growth hormone than normal. Okay. Growth hormone. Okay. So, bone growth. Okay. All right. So bone growth is impacted by hormonal control of calcium. Okay. So and so bones grow when the matrix is deposited faster than it's reabsorbed, and the outer layer of humpback bone and inner layer of trabecular bone. So you're going to grow more layer on the outer layer of the bone and also the inner layer of the spongy bones. Okay. Okay. You're going to you have osteoblasts that produce enzymes like osteoid. Okay, and osteoid is going to be what solidifies into solid bone. Okay, osteoclasts dissolve bone. Okay, so bone. Okay. Here's bone growth. Okay, so osteoblasts create calcium phosphate crystals to replace the cartilage, and so you'll see what happens is you'll have cells dying here and replaced by bone. So the cartilage will grow on one side and the die on the other side. And it'll be replaced by bone. Okay. Calcium balance. Okay. Calcium is an important signal molecule. You learn that in the nervous system and stuff. Calcium is also part of the intracellular cement that holds cells together at tight junctions, and they're involved in the coagulation cascade. Okay, so plasma calcium levels influence the excitability of neurons and all types of muscles. So too much calcium will actually increase excitability. Too little calcium, too little excitability. Okay. All right. So calcium balance. Okay. Okay. So calcium balance. This is calcium balance. Okay. This is calcium function. So to maintain calcium balance, you can absorb it from the small intestine, you can get it from your bones, or you can get it from your kidneys, reabsorbing it from your kidneys. Okay, and that is the effect of parathyroid hormone. Okay, mostly it's under the effect of parathyroid hormone. Okay, so the most important hormone that control calcium balance is parathyroid hormone. Okay, parathyroid hormone causes calcium levels in the bloodstream to go up. Okay, you can take it out of bone, you increase renal reabsorption of calcium and increase intestinal absorption of calcium. Okay, calcitrol and calcitonin. Calcitrol is vitamin D, what we generally call vitamin D. Vitamin D helps the action of parathyroid hormones. Okay, it enhances calcium uptake from the intestines. It facilitates renal reabsorption of calcium. Okay. That's why you need a certain amount of vitamin D every day. Okay. Okay. And then last and definitely least actually is calcitonin. Calcitonin it causes a decrease when calcium level goes too high. Okay, it decreases bone reabsorption, it increases renal calcium excretion, and so it's used to treat Paget's disease. Paget's disease is when you have too much bone deposit, especially as a infant or child. You do not want too much bone formation in the head when you're a child because your brain still has to grow. And if your brain ossifies too quickly, then your sutures can't extend and your brain can't grow. Okay, and obviously you end up with problems. Okay, so it's used to treat Paget's disease. Otherwise, calcitonin doesn't do anything. Okay, physiological levels of calcitonin doesn't seem to do anything in the body. We usually just regulate calcium levels in one direction using parathyroid hormone and vitamin D. We increase it when necessary, but we don't necessarily decrease the calcium in the blood when there's too much. Okay. Okay. So make sure you understand how these hormones actually work. Okay. Totally. You don't have to know. Like I said, experimentally decreases calcium levels, but has low physiological effect in adults. Okay. Bone remodeling, you should learn the anatomy already. Okay. Osteoporosis is a metabolic disorder in which bone reabsorption exceeds bone deposition. It's most common in women after menopause. It's because women after menopause stop making estrogen. Estrogen increases levels of calcium reabsorption, and therefore women after menopause don't reuptake as much calcium, and therefore if they run low on dietary calcium, they actually release parathyroid hormone, and that causes osteoporosis eventually. Okay. So hopefully that makes sense. Recording. No.